Hello, welcome to MJR RPG. The following is a review of the Japanese Call of Cthulhu scenario, Erich! There's an exclamation mark in the name, you have to read it like that. Written by Seto Eiji, second entry in the Bibliothek 13 scenario collection. In short, Erich is a short and very linear beginner investigation with ties to a kind of underutilized Lovecraft story for Call of Cthulhu, and a couple of nice scenes, but without much meat on the bones and a kind of out of left field ending. Like the previous Bibliothek 13 scenario, A Cup of Horror, Erich is a short scenario aimed at beginner keepers and players. But while A Cup of Horror was a single location dungeon crawl in the vein of Chaosium's Gateways to Terror scenarios, Erich is more of an introduction to location hopping investigation. I'm not entirely sure it succeeds at that goal though, as its rigid linearity doesn't give players much to actually investigate or deduce, with the few clues to be found directly pointing to the next location. But it does have a couple of neat scenes that may be worth the 2 or 3 hour ride. Like all the Bibliothek 13 scenarios, Erich does not come with pre-gen investigators, and also lacks handouts or a map, but does have a few pieces of character art and illustrations. Character art is very nice throughout the whole book. While nominally set in modern-day Japan, nothing about the scenario really requires it to be there, or makes much use of its setting, and it could be adapted to any location or modernish time period. Any kind of investigator would work with the scenario, though 1 or 2 with a music skill of some sort would get the most out of it. The music theme is the best part of the scenario, as fitting it being a kinda sorta sequelish thing to Lovecraft's The Music of Erich Zahn. I wish music had played a stronger part of the climax though, even if necessitating musically inclined investigators rather than the generic investigators the scenario seems to be designed for. In the following spoiler section, I have an idea for how the final scene could be adjusted to more directly use its themes and Lovecraft's story. Overall, if you're looking for a short introductory scenario, there are better ones out there, including A Cup of Horror just a few pages earlier in the same book. If you're looking for musically themed short scenarios, there are still better ones out there. For example, the delightful Seeds of Terror number 11, Flute of the Gods. But if you are hunting for a short scenario, maybe for a convention, that is directly related to the music of Erich Zahn, this does fit that bill, and it is still fun enough if rough around the edges. A keeper could also lift the most interesting scene and place it in another scenario, or use it to base a fully new scenario around. It really is a very neat little scene. Bibliothek 13 can be found wherever you are in Japan, or on Amazon, and probably can be shipped overseas. The following section is full of spoilers, so if you are looking to play the scenario, you should probably get out of here. But for keepers or players who have already played it or just want to get spoiled, do listen. The general outline of the scenario is a linear progression between 3 locations. Investigators receive a job and briefing from a classical music collector in search of a complete set of sheet music for a piece by Erich Zahn. They can hang around the store for a bit to ask questions to the collector or his assistant if need be, but won't gather much of extra use. From there, they follow a very obvious lead to a local university to find a student that made a recording of Erich Zahn's music. There isn't much in the way of explanation of how or why the student has Erich's music, but he just has it. On the way, they meet an odd man who is very, very obviously the scenario's villain. In the student's dorm room, they find the student dead, having passed away mid-performance. Following the weird guy, they find him at his office, which turns out to be a crashed Sean spaceship powered by an engine that is a broken off bit of Azathoth that is itself fueled by Erich Zahn's music. The investigators proceed to either escape or stop the ship from taking off. The ending is thoroughly bizarre with almost no foreshadowing, but in a way is kind of fun for how weird it is. The Azathoth engine is a bunch of root-like tentacles flailing around the office, and a bunch of Shan flitter about out of this guy's head while the investigators try to stop the music that powers the ship. I also kind of like it that if the investigators just stayed out of the way, the Shan would have just taken off and left without any trouble. There are 2 main changes I think could be made to the scenario to improve it. One I got as a suggestion from a very kind keeper on Twitter that I included in my run. The other I thought of after I finished running the scenario, and if I ever do it again, I would try and use it. The first idea is to have the investigators witness the death of the student. As written, they find the student sitting upright, still holding the violin, but very much dead. Instead, the investigators could enter the disgusting dorm and hear the crazed playing, triggering immediate SAN rolls. As they fight through the sound and the filthy room, the music suddenly stops, and they find the student completely motionless, gripping a violin so tightly the strings cut through bleeding fingers. Touching him, they find he's dead, and a first aid roll gives an even creepier impression that he's been dead for a few minutes, or even hours, as if his body just kept playing even after he died. For the last scene, as written, the investigators just need to stop recording to end the music and prevent the Shan spaceship from taking off. I find it a little odd that the music powers the ship, as the music of Erich Zahn made it seem like Zahn's music was an effort to stop some eldritch nonsense rather than feed it. If I ran the scenario again, I'd make it even weirder. The Shan themselves would be playing music on their own bizarre instruments, but the music would be the exact inverse of Zahn's music. To stop the ship, the investigators would either have to try to kill all the Shan directly, rather difficult as the bugs flit around the ceiling or dive bomb the investigators with their nerve whips, or they could find Zahn's sheet music and play it themselves, overpowering the Shan song and causing the Azathoth engine to dry up and die, maybe with a series of opposed music rolls in a sort of cosmic battle of the bands. Again, overall, Erich may fit a niche that you might be looking for, but there are many other scenarios that would work better if you just want a short introductory scenario. With some hefty changes, and after making sure your group is alright with a very linear scenario, Erich can still provide a fun couple of hours. As I said before, you can find Bibliothek 13 on Amazon. It's only available in Japanese, though. Thank you for listening. As always, thank you to CryoChamber for use of their album Cthulhu. Until next time, have a good one.